law did a specific thing. It said in its carefully written language, if you are an individual and a business is considered the same as an individual, you may use this law, whether or not the government is a party, to have it as a defense or a claim in a civil rights suit.
One side that hammers away stating there is nothing but hate for their lifestyle. The other side firing back with deep religious convictions and a desire to live as they see fit. At the end of the day, it's all about finding common ground, with the nation now caught in the middle of a very divisive debate. Let's welcome to MidPoint world news correspondent at advocate.com and former editor-in-chief at LGBT Weekly, Thom Senzee, and the executive director of Dignity USA, an organization focusing on LGBT issues in the Catholic Church, Marianne Duddy-Burke. I thank you both for joining us today.
Hi, Ed. Hi, Marianne.
Marianne, I'm going to start with you on this one because when we talk about LGBT issues in the Catholic Church, wait a minute now, we are told by many people right now criticizing what's happened in Indiana and Arkansas that there is no doubt Christians, Catholics, people of deep faith hate people of LGBT lifestyles. How can you then have them actually practicing in the Catholic Church? That's what a lot of people will ask.
You know, this is an issue on which there's a huge divide between the leadership of the Catholic Church and indeed many other more conservative churches and denominations and the people of the faith. You know, for more than 25 years now, we've seen growing support in the Catholic Church among people who have LGBT folks as their relatives, as their neighbors, as fellow parishioners, as their co-employees. They know that we're just like them in lots of ways, and there is no support whatsoever for these kinds of initiatives that church leaders are out in the forefront on, like this horrible law in Indiana.
Marianne, do me a favor here, if you will, and let's put some explanation here, because we're talking about the Catholic Church here right now, and then there are many people who are coming out and saying that these are Christians who dislike LGBTs. I guarantee you there's people sitting out there right now going, what's the difference between Christians and Catholics?
Right, we're all one big happy family. You know, Catholicism is one branch of Christianity and the largest branch in the United States. So our voting bloc is very, very significant, and that's what a lot of politicians look for.
But you're saying mostly that Catholics, though, are less against the LGBT community than Christians. Would that be correct?
I mean, the reality is there are many, many, many people of faith who support LGBT people. Interestingly, although the Catholic Church has a terrible reputation on LGBT issues, polls show that Catholics are the most supportive of all Christian denominations of LGBT people. So our leaders do the church a huge disservice in speaking for all of us on these issues, and it's great that regular Catholics are finding our voices in pushing back against discriminatory laws and practices.
All right, so Thom, let me get to you on this one here, because again, we have this massive divide here that's going on, and we still want to try to find a way for everybody to be satisfied. Well, let's just start there. I mean, the religionists say that they want to be able to practice their religion and do things that their religion backs them with. Of course, members of the LGBT community and those that back them say, wait a minute, you can't discriminate. Thom, what's the answer here? Is there any way to make everybody happy?
You know, gosh, Marianne just hit the nail on the head. I think maybe clarifying some definitions might be in order. You know, I think, first of all, you know, Catholics are Christian, and I'm always surprised when it seems that more evangelical-leaning Christians don't seem to recognize that they are also Christians. And what has emerged in this whole debate is the fact that the American people have a much more sophisticated, a much more loving, accepting, and frankly, a much more American point of view on this issue. And I think that the leadership, the political leadership in Indiana, has been caught so off guard. You know, Governor Mike Pence had a brief news conference in his office in Indiana and said, do you know that I have gotten emails and phone calls from people who say they know gay people and that they have gay people in their family? To the average American, that's a stunner. But he was stunned to find out, and he literally said, and I'm paraphrasing, that you could be walking down the street and see someone who knows a gay person, and he shook his head and said, that's the damnedest thing.
Well, is that just it, though? Are there blinders on one side here? And I ask you this, is it just inevitable? We've got the states, we've got the Christians and other people fighting against it. Inevitable that same-sex marriage is going to become a part of the United States and all 50 states, and all they're doing is basically fighting a dinosaur war.
You know, the American people have more in common with openly gay CEO, Apple CEO Tim Cook, who wrote an op-ed in the Washington Post earlier this week, and you know, he talked about his having been baptized as a Baptist, and having been and still being a person of faith. You know, I personally believe in God. However, I think atheists have a place in this country. Many LGBT people are churchgoers. Many. I don't have a statistic on me. I do have some interesting statistics.
How do they reconcile that, though? How do you reconcile going to a church that you know hates you?
There are many churches. You know, there used to be a tradition of sort of a more modest brand of spirituality in this country. And I'm talking about in organized religion, and it still exists. And it may actually be the majority where you know, just as, you know, it's kind of an irony. People used to say, it's fine that you're gay, but just don't advertise it. Don't wave it in my face. Well, there's that same modesty that people have been demanding of me for being born as a gay man, or a gay baby, I guess, when I was born. The church that I go to, we do a lot of work, and we're very accepting. We know that God loves us, and that
well, let me do this, and I got to work off that. I got about 45 seconds left, and let me get the final word to Marianne. So Marianne, how do we then reconcile this? Because if there are Christians who are members of the LGBT community, they feel that they're hated. Wait a minute, how do we stop this then? How do we tamp this down and make some sense here?
You know, we go back to the core values of faith, and all faiths, you know, that it's about love, it's about inclusion, it's about equality, it's about human dignity. Those values are very consistent.
But are we ever going to get to the point where people say, they always say, love the sin, not the sinner? Are we ever going to get to the point where they're going to say, love the sin, or love the sinner and hate the sin, but love the sin and love the sinner?
We're well on the way of knowing that loving someone of the same gender, having questions about your gender identity, all of those, that's not sinful. That's morality. We can hear the sacredness of God speaking to us about truth in our hearts. These ideas that there's something wrong with being gay, you know, that's very 1950s and 60s right now, and it's so great to know that most faiths are catching up and are out in front.
We'll make that the last word. We have to because of time. Marianne, Duddy-Burke, and Thom Senzee, a pleasure to have you both on the show. Great comments. We'll talk to you again soon, and MidPoint continues.